Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. I have updates to share about the trial of accused pedophile and child sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. The good news is that it's all over. After only one day of witnesses, Maxwell's defense team is done. Both sides delivered their closing arguments yesterday. Here's the deal. Here's why this ended so quickly. In the last update I shared, the prosecution had rested their case. They roughly had 10 days of testimony and witnesses. They called numerous witnesses to the stand. They had 4 alleged victims. They had ex-boyfriends, family members, 2 of Epstein's pilots, 1 of his former housekeepers, a partridge in a pear tree. And Maxwell's defense team seemed really poised to overwhelm the prosecution because they said that they were going to present approximately 35 witnesses. So her attorney said that they were still working on travel arrangements, though, for some of those witnesses. And they said that of all of those witnesses, there were 3 who would likely not testify unless the judge agreed to allow them to use either just their first name or a pseudonym. So even if the judge had ruled against that request, Maxwell still would have nearly 36 witnesses. So everyone believed, as I did, that this trial was going to easily stretch into next year. Well, the judge did in fact rule against the idea of anonymity. In her ruling, Judge Allison Nathan wrote, quote, "None of the defendant's witnesses intend to testify to sensitive personal topics or sexual conduct. Rather, they are all anticipated to deny misconduct by Epstein and Ms. Maxwell, and therefore do not qualify as victims. Further, there is no similar concern as there are for alleged victims of sexual abuse that denying the use of pseudonyms will deter reports of misconduct." The judge also noted that there's no precedence for granting a request like this. In fact, there's the opposite. She cited other high-profile cases like that NX-IVM sex cult case in which they made the similar request, or the same request, I should say, and it was denied. Judge Nathan also admonished Maxwell's attorneys because basically they brought this up last minute. So she reminded them, you could have used legal methods. You could have compelled witnesses to testify. This didn't have to come down to the wire and then you're going, oh my God, you have to hold everything up. But remember, they said only 3 people fell into this category and had this concern. So they should still have had plenty of witnesses to call. Well, it turns out people aren't exactly lining up and down the street and jumping for joy when it comes to testifying on behalf of an alleged monster who preys upon children. What a shock, right? So things got a little testy in court last Friday. Maxwell's team was begging the judge to grant them more time, saying, our client's life is on the line. You need to grant us more time to get these people into court. And the judge basically said, fish or cut bait. You either need to have your witnesses here and ready to go, or you need to rest your case. So she made it clear, she's not going to hold up the trial while these people beg and plead for witnesses to come and make fools of themselves. And the judge was right. She was right to be irritated. I mean, Maxwell has been in jail for what, like a year and a half? They knew when the trial was starting. We all knew when the trial was starting. They knew that the prosecution planned approximately for 10 days for their side of the case. This didn't come out of nowhere. The only question that really was hanging over this trial was, will Maxwell testify? Is she going to testify on her own behalf? This leads me to my next point, and this is really interesting. The family is claiming, and the defense team, that, Maxwell's too fragile. They literally said she's too fragile to testify. Fragile my ass. This is the same woman who, just about a week ago, sat staring at the sketch artist in court the one who was drawing a picture of her, and she started drawing a picture of the sketch artist. For what purpose? To intimidate her? Oh, yeah, she's this little fragile flower. Oh my gosh, it's going to break. And then Maxwell, on top of that, proves how full of it they are. She stood up on the final day of witnesses, which was last Friday, and she told the judge, quote, "Your Honor, the government has not proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt. So there is no reason for me to testify." Oh, yeah, she sounds like she's wilting. She's so delicate. Anyway, here's the real reason why Maxwell isn't testifying. According to several news outlets, prior to the beginning of the trial, Maxwell's team wanted to kind of test this theory out and see, oh, is it a good idea for her to testify? So they conducted kind of surveys. They showed people who they referred to as dummy jurors videos and news coverage of this case. And these were all people, these were all residents from this same New York area where the trial is being held. What her team found is that no one likes her. I'm not joking. The dummy jurors described Maxwell as, quote, "wholly unlikable, arrogant, suspicious, and lacking credibility." So defense attorney is not going to put that on the stand, right? Instead, what they did was they called first an executive assistant for Maxwell. She worked for her during her time with Epstein. She, of course, testified to how much she loved working for Maxwell. She said she looked up to her. She claimed that she never saw anything inappropriate. She saw young girls coming in, but, they were there to be interviewed for modeling, blah, blah, blah. So on cross-examination, the prosecutor went up and asked her just one question. She said, "Did you ever work at any of Epstein's properties, any of his homes?" And this woman said, "No." So the prosecutor said, "Okay, no more questions." So prosecutor was like, Vanessa Williams. She's like, "Get the picture? Enough said." So then they called Eva Dubin to the stand. Now, she's very interesting. She's an ex-girlfriend of Epstein's, and he was the godfather to her child, a child that she had with a hedge fund billionaire. And they were all friends. They would all hang out. So, and you make this guy your daughter's godfather. It's chilling. Anyway, she also said she never saw them doing anything wrong. But, we all know what Epstein said. I shared it with you guys, that he told someone that Maxwell is what I need. He didn't say he loved her. He specifically said, she's what I need. And clearly, Dubin wasn't what he needed, didn't give him what he needed. So the defense also had called several attorneys of some of Epstein and Maxwell's alleged victims. They called them up to try to, again, paint this picture that, oh, their clients are these money-grubbing liars. They're just trying to bilk these poor, innocent child predators out of their unearned cash. The problem, as I've pointed out before, is that they already received money. These women who testified had already received payouts from Epstein's Victims' Compensation Fund. They testified against Maxwell not to get money. It puts not one dime in their pocket. And according to a leaked document, according to a leaked copy of an agreement that they have with Epstein's estate, they can't sue Maxwell anymore. They are no longer allowed to do that. Everyone who accepted a payment from Epstein's Victims' Compensation Fund was forced to sign an agreement stating that they would not sue Maxwell specifically or any of Epstein's other alleged co-conspirators. So in testifying in this trial, the only thing they gained, the only thing they got was more grief, more pain, possibly more threats against them and their families. This trial is not about financial compensation. It's about justice. It's about justice for those who were allegedly victimized by sick, twisted adults who exploited desperate, lonely children. So the next line of defense they tried to use was that, oh, these women can't possibly be telling the truth because their stories have changed. You know, since they were first interviewed or from years ago, they changed their stories. Oh, yeah, duh. That is completely normal. That's how it works with sexual assault. Just to give you guys a personal example, something I have not even shared with my own family. My daughter was victimized by a pedophile 7 years ago. She just, within the last couple of months, shared some of the most horrifying details about what he did. 7 years later, part of the grooming process is getting victims to like and trust the pedophile, to make the victim also feel like it's their fault that this is happening to them because of something they've done, to make them feel guilty and to make them feel guilty for turning that person in. There's a lot of deprogramming that must happen before a victim understands that it's, number one, not their fault, and number two, that the perverted adult is 100% to blame, and that three, they should not feel guilty for putting these people behind bars for as long as humanly possible. So anyway, as a random observer, I think the prosecutors did an excellent job. I think they did great in their closing argument. They repeatedly hammered home the point that Jeffrey Epstein liked to touch underage girls. That's something they repeated over and over again. They also said that Maxwell knew it, that she helped him do it. They reminded the jury of what his alleged victim said, what he had done to them, what she had done to them. They showed pictures and reminded the jury about the long-term, very close, loving relationship between Maxwell and Epstein. Prosecutor Allison Moe said, among other things, quote, "She was a grown woman who preyed on vulnerable kids. She targeted a girl whose father had just died. She targeted a girl whose mother was an alcoholic. She targeted a girl with a single mom who was struggling to raise her daughters. Maxwell was a sophisticated predator who knew exactly what she was doing." She also said, quote, "When you're with someone for 11 years, you know what they like. Jeffrey Epstein liked underage girls. He liked to touch underage girls. Maxwell knew it." She also brought up the fact that Epstein gave Maxwell $30 million over the course of their relationship. And Moe stated, quote, "You don't give someone 30 million unless they're giving you exactly what you want. And what Epstein wanted was to touch underage girls. When Maxwell took that money, she knew what it was for, and now you do too." So the case has now gone to the jury. The judge gave them approximately 80 pages of instruction. And of course, there's no way of knowing exactly how long this is going to take for them to deliberate and come to a decision. But Christmas is fast approaching, so it's safe to assume that they want to get out of there. They want to reach a verdict ASAP. If we get that guilty verdict, then that's when we're going to know that we have to keep an eye on this case really closely, because I mean, that will be an amazing, awesome verdict that I would love. We will celebrate. But that's also when Maxwell is going to be forced to choose. She's going to have to choose between maybe a few years of freedom, right? She goes to jail, she gets out, she gets to spend some of her time free afterwards, constantly looking over her shoulder, constantly trying to protect herself from maybe someone who, you know, wants revenge or wants to silence her forever. Or, you know, she could spend the rest of her life behind bars, sleeping with one eye open all the time there as well, because we all know they're not going to let her go. They're not going to take a chance on her talking. So, she's going to try not to get shivved. And we all know which one she's going to choose. I mean, she's a little princess. So, she's not going to, if it's a matter of being in jail and having your life threatened daily, maybe, or being out and having your life threatened, I think she's going to take her chance on being out, where she can hire her own bodyguards and move around. So I'll let you guys know as soon as I hear anything. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care. I'll talk with you soon.